All right, yeah. This is the one right here. You ready?
Let's get it.
All right, yo. What's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Starks Artist.
And you're tuned in to the Just Different podcast where we talk everything faith, life, and culture. We finally here.
Finally, man.
Finally to get in the studio and record.
A couple days delayed.
No, of course. Well, I appreciate y'all being patient with us. First of all,
sure.
we've had a lot going on this week. We've been able to have a lot of different guests come in and record some collabs that we're super excited to share with you all like mad soon. And then we also had something we were able to film that we're also hyped to get out and give you all more details on when the time comes. And then on top of that, I mean, y'all see the setup, man. Y'all, they see it. Y'all know what it is. We've been working hard to get this new backdrop. We've got all new equipment. We've been able to get lights, a new camera, stands, even a few extra mics and interface. I mean, the full nine. And I mentioned that just because a lot of that was, we were able to do that because of like listener support.
Right.
Like you all invested in us, partnering with us to be able to like, one, get all this great equipment, then be able to ultimately like travel this summer to see more guests and even get people in like we were able to do this past week and these last few days. So look, it's all love. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all, like honestly. And for anyone else who is wanting to invest or support with us in any way, because we still get different messages of like, yo, like how can I sew into this or X, Y, and Z. We're gonna have the support link in the podcast description because I don't think we've done that before. And then also it's gonna be like on every social media page that we have in our little link that you can be able to do that. So we can keep growing, keep expanding,
Keep going up.
But hey, with all love always. Y'all know what it is. We appreciate y'all. But look, without further ado, it's been long enough.
Yes.
They've been waiting.
Let's not make them wait too much longer.
No. So we're gonna we're gonna get straight into it. We're gonna tap in right now. So look, I remember we had put a question up on our Instagram not too long ago, and it was like, what's God been teaching you? Really like the first 3 months of the year. So it's at like the end of March, and I was going through a lot of the responses. One, y'all were preaching per usual. I was like, dang, y'all was okay.
As
y'all been getting revelation. But one thing that I saw a lot, like probably the majority of the responses, was that God has been teaching them patience, and trusting God like through the process, and basically being in a season of preparation, or like in a season of waiting, right, and navigating what that looks like, and really how to get through that. And then I was seeing it so much and I was thinking about it, and I had posted, I was like, yo, like we haven't actually done an episode on that yet. I feel like we've talked about it like here and there, like super, super briefly, but actually doing an entire EP like in full we haven't. So I was like, yo, we definitely got to touch on that because that's something that is super important and like really one of the maybe like most difficult parts of the walk. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like what happens when God shows you the vision, but it still doesn't match anything your life looks like right now. Right? It's like what happens when he shows you what he's going to do, the plan that's going to happen, but still says, you know what? Not yet.
Let's just sit on that.
Let's wait.
Right.
Or you could be in a position where you're in a season of like looking for that answer, looking for that revelation on the next steps that you need. And sometimes I think one of the biggest things is like being patient with God is really directly tied to trusting in him. Because at times when we get frustrated in our process with God, we'll try to go our own way. Yeah. It's which is like, I know I see that a lot in my own life. And so when we think it's not really in God's hands, we attempt to start handling it ourselves. Yep. You know what I mean? Good. And so when it comes to really patience and being in a season of waiting, that's always directly tied to how much you actually trust God. Yeah. And that's the question that we always ask ourselves and navigate through, because usually, we approve of the result of the plan, but not the process he decides to take us through. Right? We like the end goal. We love the promise. Yeah. But everything in between is like, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great. We could do without that sometimes.
So sometimes what I was thinking about, it's not always an issue of like if you can see it, but will you continue to believe in it? Right? Because I don't know what God shows us in one season, sometimes we can begin to doubt in another. Yeah. And I think a part of like even like going through a season of waiting or preparation is maintaining the same level of faith you had when you got the direction. Exactly. Right? Or we're still having faith in, still maintaining your faith in God as provider when you're looking for an answer to your next step. And really all that is just about patience and learning how to navigate a waiting season and ultimately trusting God through that. And that's what we're really going to be talking about and going through today. And one thing that I did want to mention early on, that I was listening to something. It was I think it was Jackie Hill Perry.
Yeah.
And she breaks this message down so good, but she was basically talking about how they're like, God is holy. Right. Which essentially means that he can't sin against you. He's not able to sin against us because he is holy. And, in our own life, we're used to, right, of course, being in the fallen world of sin, having people sin against us, whether that be through betrayal, mistrust, offense, on a multitude of levels, abandonment, no matter what it is, we're so used to that. And sometimes what we receive from people, we will project on God. So going through a season of preparation on waiting on him to either give me an answer and or waiting on him to fulfill what he already said, I start to think back on the moments where people left me behind.
Yep.
When people left me by the wayside and didn't fulfill the promises that they made to me, and then we ultimately interact with God from what we've already dealt with in our own life. And sometimes we have to be really, really aware of that. And I think that's where a lot of sometimes like our trust and problems can come from, is like not understanding the totality of God's character and who he is. And that's where it really, really starts.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, that's really what the conversation is going to be about, really sitting around today. And something else that I had heard someone say, shout out Jada, it was like obedience in the mundane, right?
I like
It's
that.
basically having obedience in the mundane. Because like when it feels like life is just becoming routine, and there's nothing God is really moving. Nothing God's really touching. Like, how do you navigate that? What does that look like? And what does that mean?
Right.
Because, in those moments where it just feels like, dang, like, bro, I've been waiting. I've been diligent. I've been in my word. I've been praying. Okay, I've been in my season of singleness. Cool, right? I've been doing all of that.
It's been about a year.
For sure. And it's like, okay, like what's next?
Right.
What's the move? And how do I maintain that same level of like magnitude of like devotion to God and at a point where I'm just like, bro, I don't even know this is it no more.
Yeah. I remember, a little earlier you had made a point. You're talking about how like when we don't think God can handle it, we try to take it into our own hands, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading Colossians, and it was talking about how like we're the body, like as believers, we're the body, and how Jesus is the head of the body. And honestly, we're referenced as the body, and then we see that dynamic throughout like the entire Bible. But it kind of like sparked a thought in my head. I was like, okay, if we're the body, then we should be responding to the head, right? Like as a body, we should be functioning how a body functions. So as you understand, like the body responds to the head. So when I'm lifting up my hand like this, it's like the body is moving based on what the head is saying, right? But like you said, I think a lot of times it's like what happens is when the head is telling the body not to do anything like that. Okay, like so say I'm sitting still, right?
You're at rest.
Yeah, and I'm sitting, right? My brain's still moving, even though it's telling my body like sit still, just sit still. Like my brain's still moving, my brain's still processing, my brain's still like pull, you know what I mean? My brain's always, even when I'm sleeping, the head is always moving. But a lot of times as a body, when we feel like we haven't gotten any word from the head, we get impatient and we start to move out of accordance of the head. But the thing is, if you went to a doctor right now and told them, like, I feel like my body's just like, it's moving without the consent of my head, guess what? They tell you something is wrong.
Right.
Because they understand the body has to respond to the head. Like there's literally, I looked up, there's like a whole list of disorders, like talking about how, people, their body's just moving like of their own fruition, right? And I've always, and I've seen it a couple of times, like referenced in movies. It's called like compulsive something disorder. I forgot, but it's like basically like when you just kind of like move your body around without like thinking everything. And how I've always seen it is like people always end up like flailing their arms and like either hitting someone or like getting in someone's way. So I kind of like in the same way, I think when the body starts to move out of the accordance of the head, like people end up getting hurt, right? And we end up getting in people's way. And the reason this is dangerous because as the body, we don't have eyes of our own, right? That's why the Bible talks about walking by faith and not by sight, because we aren't walking by our own sight because the body doesn't have sight. So we're not walking by our sight, but faith in his. You know what I mean?
Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Say it. Say it again.
The reason it's dangerous because as a body, because in the Bible it says we're the body, he's the head, right? The body doesn't have eyesight. So when it says we're walking by faith and not by sight, we are not walking by our own sight because we don't have any, but we're walking by our faith in his.
That's the one.
The head has the eyes. So if the head sees and tells the body how to react. So if he's telling you to stay patient, then he sees something that warrants that response from you, right? So I think when I was looking at this dynamic, we have to start functioning like the body functions and understand we don't have sight of our own. And when we start moving, that's dangerous because like we're just moving carelessly.
Right.
We don't see what he sees. We don't see all the things that he sees behind the scenes. So it's like when he's telling you, the head is telling you to do something, you gotta respond as the body and trust in that, because you know what I mean, because it can get real dangerous if you don't.
No, of course, yeah. Like you said, like whenever you start going out on your own, moving outside of accordance or the will of the head itself, what you start getting other people's way,
Yeah.
and ultimately slowing yourself down without you even knowing it.
Yeah.
It always comes down to, I think we've mentioned it before, but are you going to operate in your plan or His will?
Yeah.
And one thing is, like, when we start to really lose trust in God, we'll begin to ultimately either turn to ourselves or the world, right? Because you had mentioned it, Heartbreak Anniversary, which I thought was really good, is the fact that impatience breeds hopelessness. And I'll take that a step further, because I'll say, like, impatience breeds hopelessness, which ultimately leads to desperation, right? And like I mentioned before, when you're desperate, you're not picky. So what happens in this season that we're waiting on God, right? We're in our preparation. We're trying to stay diligent and staying faithful to Him when things don't seem like anything, when nothing's going on and nothing's moving. Like, what happens is we'll start to compromise the promise.
Yeah.
And we'll begin to settle for things God never intended for us to have. Whether that be relationships, whether that be opportunities, whether that be open doors in different directions, whether that be at this company, in that city, in that position, with that pay raise, or whatever it is, we'll start to move and operate in different things God never wanted us to actually be in, because of like this desperation that we now have, or that we're now experiencing. Yes, like I said, we'll start turning to, whether that be the world or ourselves. 'Cause I even remember for myself, it was like, even when I started, it was after high school, right, when I was applying to colleges and things like that. And what we always talk about is like the how's up to God, right? So if He's giving you a vision, He's giving you a dream, He's giving you a plan, the how's ultimately up to Him. You need to stay diligent to what you need to do, and everything else He's going to work out.
Yeah.
But I was in a season, I was like, okay, God, like, where am I supposed to go to school? Like, where are you leading me? Like, what direction? Like, what city? What state? And at some point, I just began to, like, I'm seeing everybody else. Okay, now they're committing. They're getting signed. They're already decided, oh, yeah, I'm going to this school. I'm going to IU. I'm going to X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, God, what's good?
Right. Talk to me.
What's going on, And ultimately, like, in my impatience, right, I was, like, getting hopeless. Like, okay, like, God's not going to respond to my prayer. Like, I'm not going to get the insight that I need to make the right decision. And then I started, like, going out and trying to, like, figure everything out for myself, right? Like, and I'm looking at, like, okay, I'm applying to these colleges, but now I'm intimidated and filled with anxiety. Like, like, how am I going to pay for this? Like, how is this even going to happen? What is this going to work out? Will I get accepted here? Is this even going to happen? Now I'm overextending all this energy and all this effort in a place that's supposed to be God's work, and carrying what we always talk about is unnecessary weight that's up to Him. If I just would have stood still, right, actively, right, in a proactive sense, stood still and let God do what He does, being patient, then everything would have worked out the way it would have, which it did, and I wouldn't have had to gone through all that stress and anxiety of worrying about how, like, everything was going to happen and or take place, because I was ultimately trusting in Him when it felt like nothing was moving, when He was working behind the scenes the entire time.
That's good. It's kind of like, I was talking about earlier, it's just kind of like, I think when He's not, like, physically showing His strength, we start, like, trying to move it on our own. You know what I mean? Just not realizing, like, He's always been strong. Like, He's always been there. He's always been moving. Like, and there's nothing that will ever change that. You know what I mean? But I think that was a good point. Like, we really do like, when you get desperate, you not picky, bro. Like, you'll take anything, bro. Like, when you just compromise, right?
When
you're really down bad.
We talk about that in relationships, but that's just in life in general.
Yeah.
Right. Like, any opportunity that comes your way looks appealing, right? You no longer have a standard that you're holding yourself to, because it's just like, oh snap, like, where did God go?
Yeah.
Where is He at? And so now I feel like, okay, now I gotta take it into my own hands.
Right.
It's now like what I have to do.
Ultimately, you gotta stay rooted in Him and that initial vision He gave you. Really.
For sure.
I was thinking about, like, in terms of, like, why, because, sometimes, obviously, when we go through the seasons, it's kind of like, okay, there got to be a reason for the season. That's kind of cliche.
No,
that's really cliche, but, like, there's always a reason for the season, and I feel like anytime God has had me in a season of, like, that not yet season, 9 times out of 10, it was like a season of preparation. I'm not sure if y'all heard the saying, but it says, God isn't preparing your blessings for you; He's preparing you for your blessings, right? Because we understand He's Alpha and Omega, like, beginning and end. He understands, like, all those things for you, those rooms, He already has them lined up, right? So it's not about getting the room ready for you, but getting you ready for the room. So when you're in that season, it's I've noticed, like, it's either a season of preparation, or it's a season of preparation in the sense that there's either something you need to learn or the time just isn't right. Because I've also learned that like sometimes your blessings are wrapped up in connections and collaborations with other people, right? And maybe God's like still getting them ready. You know what I mean? So even when I think about like our kind of more into our personal testimony with the podcast, like we started as a YouTube and then we kind of took like a year and a half off before we like relaunched it as a podcast. We were kind of in that our own season of that, like not yet, right? And I think we literally started at the perfect time, because I think as soon as we started, that was when like it was literally like a month later, a couple months later, we went to Passion and we had met those people. I think if we decided to move of our own, you know what I mean, on our own strength and our own will, and we started earlier, I honestly don't know if we would have met those people. You feel what I mean? So it's like, I think sometimes it's like he's just setting things up, right? He's either getting you ready or he's getting someone else ready or something else ready, because I think a lot of our blessings are tied to like other connections and partnerships, right? So just in terms of why you're going through the season of preparation, it's just, I think it's either, you know, you need to learn something and you need to teach something, or, you know, he's getting other people ready, getting it lined up.
Yeah. So yeah, even when it comes to preparation, I'm always thinking about, or at least the question I feel like we all should ask is like, are you prepared for what you're praying for?
Yeah.
Right. Like, are you prepared for, you know, what you're asking God for, what you're expecting God for in your life, or in that next season of whatever's next? Because, you know, in that season of waiting, which I think, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have heard before, but this isn't just like something which is like stagnant. Right, this isn't something which you're just sitting there and you're waiting on God. It's something that you're being proactive in, right? Getting yourself prepared for, essentially doing the last thing God told you.
Yep.
Right. So even when it comes to like going back to what Jordan said with our own really journey with this podcast, we started off as a YouTube channel a while ago, about 3 years ago, and then we took that like year and a half off. And in that time frame, ironically, I kept asking God, "What's the next move?"
Right. What now?
What do I need to do? What are you leading me and calling me to?
Yeah.
And all I kept hearing from different people in different sermons and all this confirmation was like, do the last thing God told you.
Yep. That one stuck with me.
It's like, do the last thing God told you. Like, you already have a word or a word, a command, an instruction that he's giving you to walk in, that's going to unlock the next season, that's going to unlock the next door and unlock what you're looking for out of your life. But you just have to listen to the last thing.
Yep.
Right? So sometimes in this season, I'm just like, wait, and I'm like, okay, God, like, all right, man, like, okay, where's it at? You know what I mean? Okay, like where's that job opportunity? Okay, where's that scholarship? All right, okay, where my P31? Yo, cool. My that Ephesians 5, man. Like, whoa, where's it at? And it's like, are you preparing yourself for that? But like, are you preparing yourself for these opportunities that you're asking God for? You're expecting him to bring into your life, or what he's already shown you, you're going to walk into. Are you getting yourself ready for that? And so I think that's also a part of just like that season of waiting and trusting in God is also like making sure that he can trust in you. Right? I just saw this post. It's like, yo, can God trust you with your destiny? Can he trust you with that, and making sure that you're disciplining yourself and you're staying strong in him, and he's being the one that's going to like mend you, right, and mold you into the person that you need to be and become, so you can step into everything that he has. So I think that's also important to note that I didn't always realize, because I would just be sitting there like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to like just chill and just wait and see what's going to happen. Because I would say even in my own life, when it comes to like relationships, right? Because I know a lot of people are always, because I know a lot of people sometimes ask, like, yo, how do you find godly community? I'm looking for godly friends. I don't see them like within my town, like anywhere close to me, people truly living for God. And I know that I was there for an extremely, extremely long time. And I remember I got this was word from this pastor, and this had to be, it's 2022. It was 4 years ago. And I remember him telling me that like, this was 3 years ago. And I remember him telling me, it's like God's is about to send you friends that love what you love and dislike what you dislike, and essentially are going to be able to sharpen you and grow you. And so I was like, oh, bet, okay. I was like, cool.
That sounds great.
I was like, praise God.
Amen.
Hey,
hallelujah.
Praise God. And so I heard that, and I was like, oh, I got excited, of course. Yeah. And then like the next week, and I walked into class the next day, and I was like, oh,
okay,
nothing changed. The next week, and then that next week happened. I was like, oh, I still the same circle, the same people. Ain't nobody really changed, and I'm still here with no community. And then, I must feel, I was like, okay, a few months passed by, and nothing happened either.
Maybe God just one more month.
Yeah, like maybe you know what I mean.
It's never.
So yeah, and so like time just kept going by, and I was just sitting there, right, just not being proactive, not doing anything, just kind of like looking around, literally waiting and searching, like, yo, like what's gonna happen. At some point, I just let it go. I was just like, cool, right. Then ironically, January comes around, this past January, and I now have found that godly community, right, of people that I really do feel like sharpen me and grow me as an individual, that are my genuine brothers. But that took 3 years. But what happened was, I ran the risk of losing the very thing God promised, because I wasn't prepared. Because in that season where I was looking around, I wasn't maintaining relationships I already had.
Yep.
I wasn't allowing myself to be a good friend to those who are already in my inner circle.
Yeah.
I wasn't working on like my communication skills, being open, being vulnerable, being transparent, right? Even whether that be with my own parents, like with Jordan, whoever it was, I was just sitting there like, oh God, okay, God, where's it at? But I wasn't even in a position to really have that community at that point.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why I mentioned that. It's because it's always important to like just be like, and when you're waiting, this isn't something that you're just, lollygagging around with and just like looking at God like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is a waiting, which is, I think. No, yeah, and actually it was funny because I saw something. I don't know if it was on TikTok or something, but it was basically explaining this like this aspect of like basically being prepared, trusting God in your waiting season. And it's like whenever you're waiting, like I said, it's not something that you're just sitting there and looking around. It's like you're actually a server, right? And it's like, yo, God, I'm at your service, right? Like I'm
like
waiting. I'm wait like as if like I'm a waitress, a waitress and or a waiter.
I'm waiting.
I'm waiting on you, your next direction, right? I'm literally I'm coming to you. I'm initiating. I'm coming to you at your service, right? Preparing. What does a waiter do? They're going back and forth. Like appetizers, they're cleaning stuff, or they're getting the napkins, they're getting the plates ready, or whatever they're doing. Where they're always in a state. They're never stagnant.
Always moving.
They're never not. It's God. Like I'm at your service. That's the type of waiting that should look like. And I thought that was really fire. I was like, yo, that's a bar.
That's tough, bro. I mean, even when you think about, the life of David, like he was in the field and attending to the flock way before, he was attending to God's people. He was in the field working, every day, sharpening his skills, ultimately to slay Goliath, ultimately to become king, So even Joshua, who was the successor of Moses, like he wasn't just like sitting around like, chilling in some shack while Moses was out here going crazy. Like, no, he was diligently learning from him, watching him until eventually it was his time, right? So like in that season, like they were always preparing. They weren't just sitting around doing nothing. So yeah, I think that's just testament to that for sure. So I remember recently you had made a point, and just for context, like we've been kind of like going down memory lane for this video that we were able to shoot, things we've been working on behind the scenes, and we were kind of like just going, down memory lane, like looking more towards like the origins of just different. You had made a point talking about how like when we were in that season after we had started the YouTube and took a little break in that season of like that waiting, you said something along the lines of, you never let go of that hope, right? Even though we were in that season, like you always had hope that like God was still going to do something big, even in that season. And I think for me personally, I kind of feel the same way. Like I always had that hope, like, like it doesn't really look like how it should now, but I still, I still believe in that word that he gave me, even though sometimes like, you might go through times where you kind of doubt it, but it's just like, I didn't allow myself to lose the hope. Like I still held on to it. Honestly, God ultimately allowed me or kind of helped me in that, just like not losing that hope. And it reminds me of like this scripture in Romans 8:25. It says, but if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. So in the scripture, it's like, it's laying out a cause and effect, but the thing is like the cause comes second. So it's saying like, if we hope, or it's saying we wait patiently because we hope for what we don't have. Right. So I think the key is the hope. Like that's where the patience comes, because we were talking about how like moving out of according to his will comes from impatience. Well, if you want to hold on to that patience right here, it's saying you have to also hold on to that hope. Right. even when it looks hopeless, even when, like you said, when what you're seeing right now isn't lining up with the vision, like what then? I think a part of that is holding on to that hope.
But no, yeah, that's good. It's like, no, it basically goes back to like the initial thing that like patience. I mean, having waiting on God, it's basically synonymous and directly tied to trusting in Him, right? And continuing to have like stay in that hope of what He told you, or that He's going to ultimately continue to be who He says He is at all times, even if at times it doesn't feel like that's always the case, right? But how do you? So I guess that's really the question though. Like, how do you, continue in that hope? Or continue in that trust for God, right? Because it's all good to like wait on the Lord.
Yeah, it does
like
sound
how,
good.
like yeah, for sure. But you know what I mean? What is that? How do you actually continue to do that? And like trust in Him in those seasons and in those moments where it's just like, yo, nothing's happening. It's not taking place. I'm not seeing the fruit.
I think practically kind of what that looks like in terms of holding on to that hope is just realizing that God's never let me down up until this point. I mean, even if it hasn't been like the most long journey, or even if it hasn't been the longest journey ever, like I'm still kind of young in terms of like my faith in God. Like up until this point, like what has He done to not show Himself faithful? Like what has He done to ever let me down? And the answer is like it's nothing. So it's like, okay, even though it doesn't necessarily look like what He said it would, it's like, okay, God, I'll continue to go just on the simple fact that you've been good. Like you've always been good up until this point. I think that's not fair to God. It's like God has been nothing but good to us, and we're always like, well,
it's always looking at like your history with God, which is what I was going to mention. It's always, which I feel like we talked about a while ago, but looking at what he's already brought you from and what He has done from you, right? Like, so whenever David was stepping to Goliath, which we've always heard about the infamous story, where he wasn't thinking about Goliath, he was thinking about when he defeated the lion in the field, when he had to defeat the bear. Like he had already seen this before and seen what God had already done for him in those moments, in those seasons. So when he was presented with this adversity, it was like, God can do it again, right? And that can be like the igniter of your faith. It's like, yo, like, okay, I may be experiencing this little anxiety in this moment, this little stress or whatever, but like, yo, I remember last year when He got me through that 3 months of depression. Do you feel what I'm saying? Like, all snap, I'm feeling completely burnt out. I don't know if I can finish the semester. Like, I'm really about to. It's about to be over with. It's OV. But I remember when He brought me through that entire school academic year, the year prior. Like, or whatever that may look like for you, like. That's why it's important to always have like that relationship with Him, like that real relationship with Him in those encounters. Is like understand His character, and realize that what He won't sin against you, He won't fail because it's not in His nature. He literally can't, and it'll be crazy because sometimes you can get in moments where you genuinely do forget that.
Yeah, really.
Right, like because like it'd be crazy. Like His track record really clean.
That's what I'm saying. That's wild. Like He got the best credit score in history. Like He's never missed a payment, never let you down, and it's like you're still here. Like
He won't fail. No, but like, so I guess another part of that is, yes, like having history with God, but that's starting with like knowing the character of who He is as well. Yeah. Which it always comes full circle to this. It's like, yo, what do you believe about God and who He is? And that's why it's important to like be very steadfast in your word, and not only understanding it but believing it, and stepping from believing in it to actually living it out, right? Going through all these phases of understanding that, because like once you understand the promises that He does have for you, and which is laid out within the Bible. When you go to the Old Testament and look at like even Israel, when you look at Moses and you look at Abraham and all the things that He's spoken over their life, right? Those are indirect testaments to how He was also going to deal with us. Like none of those were ever void, right? Or came back void. None of those promises ever came back void, because He was always true to His word in every situation, in every story, and everything that you see throughout the Bible. Every biblical character, no matter how much that they failed, how much they came short, He always showed up in every way. And so I think that's also important to note. It's just like really understanding His character and getting very acclimated like His promises. And what that looks like. Because even you sometimes can skip over that, even like when reading those things. Cause like I'm like, yo, Old Testament, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, but it's literally showing you like his character from beginning to end, and how like, yo, for instance, since like creation, like every word he's spoken, right, has never failed
at all.
and it won't now. And like, why would that change with you?
Like I remember, what was that? I think it was probably last EP. I like told y'all, like to stop taking people's word for it. But I think God is the one person like you could take His word for it. You know what I mean? Because I think that statement held true in that sense that I was talking about, is because like I was pertaining to like in terms of like just like us as people, as human, like we're flawed. Like our track record, you know, I mean, got some dents, got some bruises in it. But God is like, you can take His word for it. You know what I mean? I stand firm in that. Like you can take His word for it. Like you're good. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I think something also like just to add on is I think that our faith may wither as our focus does. Right, so the less focus that we keep on God and reminding ourselves of these promises that He has given to us. Like I said earlier, like in one season, what we believe in God, in one season we can start to doubt in another, because of like, all the trials that may happen before these things come, all the tests that you may have to encounter, the battles, the refinement, whatever that looks like, and sometimes you can just forget, right? And so like essentially like renewing your mind, as we always hear about in like Romans 12:1, and keeping not only like, of course, and keeping what He said to you on the forefront of your mind, and making that a part of like your belief system and your perspective, and what you're always feeding yourself. And that's something that you're never going to forget, right? Because even when you think about like Peter when he was walking on the water, right? Like his faith stopped when his focus shifted. And so I think that's always important, to keep your eyes on God and where He's at, and that's what's going to allow you to like really endure like all those seasons of like, you know, like really trying to find out where God is, as if He ever left, and staying true to what you need to be doing in any season. But no, yeah, that's what I got. You got anything else for the people? You got something to leave them with? You know how we are.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of say something that's kind of like, you know, just summarize, or, you know, what I want you guys to leave with is just the fact that, like we were saying earlier, man, his track record speaks for itself, you know. And I think a lot of times, like we were saying, when you're going throughout your daily life, you know, experiencing different things, going through different trials, you can forget that, right? But He's always been good. That's the one thing you can always count on in this life. Like he always has been good and always will be good. I think you can take His word on everything that He tells you, because that is true, right? So yeah, hold on to the hope, and that's where the patience lies. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, and I guess like just for me, what I've had to learn is like just not to project on God what I've experienced with other people, right? And I think a lot of like that those issues of like trust, or like feelings of like abandonment, or like, dang, like this may fail, this may not, or He may not come through on this, has always been a byproduct of like how I've seen other people, and that being how I'm interacting with God. And then ultimately believe this, you know, he meant that, right? Like everything that He has spoken over your life, that He said in His word, when it comes to your future, when it comes to the plans that He has, He meant it. And ultimately looking at, what do I really believe about God, and asking Him to even show that to you and to prove Himself to you even more, so your faith may increase to the point to where you have more history with Him, and you can like withstand those trials and storms that may come in the season of preparation or waiting, so you can trust Him in a deeper way that you never experienced, right? Because after every moment, after every promise is not fulfilled, that's another increase to your faith and what you know about Him and what you believe that He can do. Yep. And yeah, so that's the biggest part of it. But yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's for the people. You sure you got nothing else? You got off your chest?
That's all I got. No, I think I said everything I know.
No, it's for sure. But look, we're gonna be back on a regular schedule.
Yeah,
every Thursday. Y'all know what it is. Thank you for being patient with us.
For sure.
But look, stay you,
stay real,
and stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.